so I wash my hands as I enter into the room. Hello, Mr. Otto. My name is Ashley. I'm a nurse practitioner student, and I'm going to be doing your interview today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How about yourself? You can call it. Go ahead and call me Dirk.
I'm doing well, thank you. It's nice to meet you. Are you okay if we talk about colorectal screenings today?
Sure.
So, what do you know about colorectal screenings?
I mean, I know the basics. What it involves. The big thing that I also know is that the preparation is kind of quite the hassle going into it.
So yeah, that's true. Colonoscopies can help detect colorectal cancer, and it's actually recommended that anyone over the age of 50 gets screened for early detection of precancerous polyps. In addition, I noticed that you do have a family history with your dad having precancerous polyps. So knowing that early detection can help save lives, what are your thoughts about getting screened for polyps?
I mean, it definitely makes sense with my family history and everything. It's just, I know the hassle for the preparation of it is just something that still concerns me.
Yeah, that's completely understandable. So you can see the importance of getting a colonoscopy, especially since your dad had polyps. Tell me more about the parts of the preparation that concern you.
Well, we've all heard stories about the not so pleasant drink that accompanies it that kind of is meant to clean you out, and I'm just worried about that and the discomfort and what does it mean? Do I have to miss work or schedule around the home life and just all of kind of the general unpleasantries that come with that.
Okay. So yeah, it sounds like you're worried about the distasteful drink, the discomfort, and potentially missing work.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if it was a little bit easier, not with all those type of effects, I think it'd be something that would be easier to strongly consider.
If you don't mind, I just kind of want to summarize what you've been telling me so I can make sure that I understand. So you don't mind getting a colonoscopy done, what you're worried about are the preparation that goes into it, the discomfort, the drink itself, and potentially the interaction with work. And these concerns are what's keeping you from getting the screening done.
Yeah, those are the main concerns of this whole process. Yeah.
Okay, so that's very understandable. I hope I have some information that might help with this if you're okay with me sharing that with you.
Sure, go ahead, shoot.
Yeah, so the recommendations come from patients that have previously undergone colonoscopies and kind of have given some suggestions over the many years to help ease the exact same concerns that you have. Mm-hmm. So one of them is to have small meals and low fiber foods a few days prior to your colonoscopy. This kind of just helps things move along more smoothly. I can provide you with a handout at the end of today with some of those foods that to avoid or to try. As for the laxative drink itself, some people have recommended drinking it cold and through a straw. It kind of helps with the taste of that. The day before, they usually suggest a full liquid diet. Usually that's a clear liquid diet as well. But there's so many things that actually taste pretty good that you can try. This could even include gummy bears. Just don't eat the red or the purple ones because those can show up kind of as blood, look like blood during your exam. They suggest prepping the bathroom, so having comfortable toilet paper, potentially wipes if you prefer that, creams if you get any irritation, prepping it for comfort in terms of having a phone charger and some entertainment available, and just whatever else you need to make it more comfortable, maybe some stretchy pants. Some have suggested they will give you kind of a time to start that drink, move it up a few hours so you're not up all night using the restroom. And most of these activities happen during the evening, so you're unlikely to miss work unless you work evenings or night shift. So what do you kind of think of all that?
I mean, all that information makes sense. It's nice to kind of have the first-hand user account experiences to help figure out what other people manage to do to make it kind of less painful. So, I mean, I think having that type of information is useful, and maybe it's not as bad as I've made it out to be in my mind. It's something then with the proper planning, I could go ahead and do something like that.
Okay. So you think that these tips that others have provided regarding the prep that you're as well worried about could potentially make this something that you're willing to move forward with?
Yeah, I mean, I think the tips and, like I said, the first-hand experiences are helpful. Mm-hmm. I mean, it doesn't take away the complete worry of all the discomfort. I mean, that's still there. That's the big worry for me is just the unpleasantry of it.
Yeah. being worried about the discomfort is entirely normal. I am glad that the patient experiences and tips have helped you to relieve some of those concerns, having talked about these tips to reduce the comfort and you being aware of your personal risk for colorectal cancer. Where do you kind of stand in terms of getting your colonoscopy done?
Yeah, it definitely makes sense to do it with the family history. I think with all the tips and the planning, it's something I should do. If I run into any hesitations or issues where I feel like I'm not going to go forward, I'll definitely let you know. But I think it makes sense to do something like this.
Okay. That's great to hear, Dirk. I'm glad that you are taking this step for your health, and I will make sure to get you that handout on the food suggestions and things to avoid. My assistant can come in and schedule your colonoscopy today if you would like before you leave.
Sure, sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dirk. I hope that you found our conversation today helpful, and if you have any other questions, make sure to let me know so we can make this experience as tolerable as we can for you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right, so now I'm going to go into the questions that we kind of put together for the post presentation. So once again, thank you, Dirk, for your participation. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rank the motivational interview being to convince you to proceed with a colonoscopy when you entered with worries of PrEP, 10 being the most convinced to move forward?
8.3.
All right. Do you have any constructive feedback that you can provide regarding my communication skills on the scenario?
I think having facts and kind of like those user tips are helpful to have to help convince people when it comes to the facts and the logical aspect. I would also just kind of recommend, a lot of times talking peer to peer is very helpful. Less sterile words and really kind of have that personal connection help sell people on it.
Okay. Well, thank you again, and thank you for your time. You can go ahead and go. All right. So now I'm going to jump into my reflection of the scenario. So here are some of the motivational interview techniques that I feel that I used and some of the changes that I could make for future scenarios. So some of the motivational interview techniques that I used, I asked permission. So I asked in the beginning, do you mind if we talk about colorectal screening and colonoscopies? I used open-ended questions. Tell me more about the PrEP that concerns you. I used reflective listening. Let me summarize. It sounds like you are worried about. I used affirmations, so you can see the importance of these screenings. I normalized. I spoke about others that have gone through the same experience and the tips that they came up with. I provided advice and feedback. I said, do you mind if I give you some tips for reducing the discomfort? I summarized. I said, let me summarize what you're saying so that I can make sure that I'm understanding. And I had statements that support self-efficacy. So how do you feel about this commitment? Some changes that I feel I could make. I think Dirk provided some great feedback. There was a lot of kind of sterility and medical terms involved that I could have changed and made more personable. More change talk could have been provided. Decisional balance, so I could have talked about the good things and the bad things. That was a little hard because he was pretty okay with most of the stuff and he understood the bad things, but I could have mentioned that more. Normalizing could have been explored a little bit more as well. I talked about just those patients and the tips that came up with, but I could have used other examples this is a concern I get with a lot of my patients, something like that. And then I could have used like a readiness to change ruler. I did not use the ruler, but I was able to get a sense from his statements that he was ready to try, or at least get started on trying. But a lot of what I have read says to use that 1 to 10 scale that we used at the end of the video in the actual interview itself. So thank you again for this.